Two people invest the exact same money into the exact same market for the exact same 30 years. One pays a financial advisor, one manages it themselves. At the end, one of them has about $108,000 more than the other. That's not a stock-picking story. Neither of them beat the market. The entire difference comes from one number, a common advisory fee of roughly 1% a year. 1% doesn't sound like much, but it isn't 1% of what you earn. It's 1% of the assets the advisor manages for you, taken every year in the good years and bad ones for as long as you're invested. And because it's a percentage, it compounds against you at the same time your money compounds for you.
Why do I need a financial planner? What are the benefits?
Bring expertise, ethics, education, and experience. We are held to a higher standard. Actually, it's called the gold standard.
Financial advisor sounds like something so fancy.
Now, before this turns into an argument against advisors, it isn't one. There's a real researched case that a good advisor can earn that fee back and then some. But newer research has made that argument noticeably more complicated. So pay a financial advisor or invest on your own. Let's run the numbers on both. Here's what most people believe. An advisor is a trained professional with access to research you don't have. And paying one is what separates a comfortable retirement from a stressful one. That belief makes sense if you've ever opened a fund prospectus or tried to figure out what tax loss harvesting means. Handing the whole thing to a specialist feels like the adult decision. But that belief answers a question nobody's actually asking. The question isn't whether an advisor knows more than you. Almost certainly they do. The question is whether what they know is worth 1% of the portfolio they manage for you every year for the rest of your investing life.
They are advising you. They're not telling you. You don't work with a financial advisor that doesn't have the heart of a teacher. If they have the heart of a salesman, they're slimy, run.
Those are completely different questions. And only the second one changes how much money you end up with. Let's start with the cost, because most people have never seen it written down. Say you invest $500 a month for 30 years, and your investments average 7% a year before fees. That 7% is an illustrative assumption, not a promise. Nobody knows future returns. With no advisory fee, you'd finish with roughly $610,000. Same contributions, same market, but now subtract a 1% annual fee, so you're netting 6% instead of 7%. You finish with about $502,000. The ending balance is about $108,000 lower because of the fee and the compounding growth you lose with it. That's almost 18% of everything you would have built, lost to a cost that is often deducted automatically instead of arriving as a separate bill. And here's why that number is more stable than you'd think. Run it at 5% instead of 7%, and the fee still reduces the ending balance by about 17%. Run it at 9%, and the reduction is closer to 19%. In this 30-year example, the impact stays between roughly 17 and 19% when gross returns range from 5 to 9%. Is 1% the real going rate?
Fee-based seems to be a more straightforward methodology. So it can be based on the amount of money that they're managing for you. It could be an
like
hourly.
1% or 2%.
Yes, 1% or 0.5%. And a commission is just that, a transaction-based relationship.
According to the 2026 State of Financial Planning Fees study from Datos Insights and Investnet Money Guide, the average advisor fee based on assets under management is about 0.96%. So 1% isn't an extreme assumption. It's close to the reported average, but there's a wrinkle that works against smaller investors specifically. These fees are tiered and the rate goes down as your account gets bigger. In NerdWallet's analysis of advisors they review, fees average between 1.1 and 1.5% on a $250,000 account and around 0.86% on a $1 million account. Smaller accounts frequently face the highest percentage rates, and the advisory fee usually isn't the only fee. As Michael Kitces has pointed out, advisory fee surveys typically exclude the expense ratios of the funds the advisor buys on your behalf. Those stack on top. Your all-in cost is often higher than the number on the agreement. One more structural thing worth understanding: the fee is charged on your balance, not your gains. If your portfolio falls 20% in a bad year, you still pay. And whenever the balance used to calculate the fee is $500,000, 1% is $5,000. The fee is guaranteed, the returns aren't. That structure also creates a specific conflict worth knowing about. An advisor paid a percentage of the assets they manage has a financial reason to prefer that those assets stay put. If you're considering pulling money out to pay off a mortgage or to help a family member, that's a decision where your interest and their compensation don't fully line up. It doesn't mean you'll get bad advice. It means it's a fair thing to ask about directly. So what is the fee buying? For a long time, the standard pitch was better investment selection. The advisor picks funds that beat the market, and the fee pays for itself. That specific promise doesn't hold up well. According to S&P Dow Jones Indices' SPIVA US scorecard, 79% of actively managed large-cap US stock funds underperformed the S&P 500 in 2025, worse than the 65% rate in 2024, and the fourth worst showing for active managers in the scorecard's 25-year history. Over 20 years, roughly 93% underperformed. One important caveat, because this gets misused constantly. SPIVA measures professional fund managers, not financial advisors. Most advisors today don't pick stocks. They allocate across funds, often index funds. So this data doesn't say advisors are bad at their jobs. It says something narrower and more useful. If the reason you're paying a fee is the hope of market-beating fund selection, the historical odds on that are poor. Which brings us to the actual case for advisors, and it's a real one. It just has nothing to do with picking investments.
Can a financial advisor actually increase your investment returns by 3%? Because Vanguard put out a paper saying that they quantified the value that a financial advisor brings to your investment portfolio, and it's a whopping 3%.
Vanguard's research group studied this under a framework they call Advisors Alpha. Their finding is that advisors can potentially add around 3 percentage points in net returns. Not through stock selection, but through things like rebalancing, tax-aware withdrawal sequencing, and keeping clients from selling during a crash. Two things you need to know about that number. First, Vanguard is explicit that this is not an annual expectation. Their own language is that the value is likely to be very irregular and arrives over an unspecified period, often concentrated during moments of market panic or euphoria. Second, Vanguard sells advisory services. Their research is careful and widely cited, but it isn't neutral, and you should weigh it knowing that. The supporting evidence for the behavioral piece has usually come from Morningstar's annual Mind the Gap study. The 2025 edition found that over the 10 years ending December 2024, the average dollar invested in US mutual funds and ETFs earned about 7% a year, while the funds themselves returned about 8.2%. A gap of 1.2 percentage points annually, roughly 15% of those funds' total gains. For years, that gap got explained as investors buying and selling at the wrong moments. Here's the complication that newer research has raised. A study published in the Financial Analysts Journal by Fulkerson, Jordan, Riley, and Yan examined that exact same data and found that poor timing accounts for only about 0.10% per year, not 1.2%.
We think the U.S. market is largely fairly valued today, maybe even slightly to the overvalued side. However, there's great returns and opportunities in value stocks, small cap stocks. So there's certainly opportunities over and above the headlines.
Okay. Morningstar itself has softened its own framing, now noting the gap appears to reflect several factors, including how investors use funds in the first place, rather than bad timing alone. So where does that leave things? The gap between fund returns and investor returns is real and well measured. What's now genuinely disputed is how much of it comes from panic selling, which is exactly the behavior an advisor may be able to protect you from. One of the most commonly cited estimates for the value of behavioral coaching is now under serious dispute. Anyone who tells you the issue is completely settled is getting ahead of the evidence. So here's the direct answer. For most straightforward financial situations, an ongoing percentage fee is a poor trade. But there are specific circumstances where it can be worth paying. It's likely worth considering when your situation is genuinely complex. Business ownership, multiple income sources, a large taxable account sitting alongside retirement accounts, equity compensation, or an estate that needs structuring. The tax and planning work in those cases is real, it's specialized, and mistakes can cost more than the fee. It's also likely worth considering if you know you won't hold steady on your own. If you sold during 2020 or during 2022 and watched the recovery from the sidelines, that's expensive information about yourself. Even under the more conservative estimates, keeping someone invested through a crash can have value. It's probably not worth an ongoing percentage if your situation is simple. A 401k, maybe an IRA, steady income, no complicated tax picture, and you can buy a low-cost diversified fund and leave it alone. In that case, you're paying close to a fifth of the ending balance in this illustration for a service you may not be using. And there's also a third option that receives less attention in discussions about percentage-based fees, flat fee and hourly planners. Hourly rates typically run about $200 to $400, and a one-time comprehensive financial plan often costs around $3,000. You get professional help with the complicated parts without paying a permanent percentage of the assets you own. None of this is advice for your specific situation. That depends on your finances, your temperament, and your goals. But the honest reading of the evidence is this: the strongest justification for the fee is access to complexity management and behavioral support. It does not reliably buy better investment returns. Whether that's worth 1% of the portfolio an advisor manages for you every year is a calculation only you can run. And now you have the numbers to run it. A 1% fee can look invisible in any single year, but over 30 years, its effect on your ending balance is not a rounding error. So here's a question worth sitting with. If you pay an advisor, could you say out loud right now what specific service you're getting for that fee? And if you manage your own money, what would it actually take to make you sell during the next crash? Tell us in the comments. Advisor, self-managed, or somewhere in between, and what made you choose it? If you want more videos that work out whether a financial decision is worth it using real numbers instead of guesswork, subscribe to Worth It Finance.